Hello and welcome back to Gay by Gay. My name is Adam.
And I'm JJ.
And today we're talking about religion.
A light topic.
Were you raised religious?
I feel like my parents did the traditional routine that I feel most baby boomer parents did. You generally introduce your kids to religion, you make it sort of a variable, an option that you can pursue if you're interested in after a certain age. And predictably, the family sort of loses all interest after that point, and it never really becomes present in their lives.
But did you go to church?
Sometimes, yeah.
To what kind of church?
Catholic church. After sort of my parents sort of stopped caring, I sort of went with my grandmother relatively frequently.
Do you think that those somewhat maybe infrequent trips to the Catholic Church had a bearing on your coming out and your perception of being gay?
No, honestly, I was always aware that this was a live debate, right?
Right.
So that I was always aware that
Yeah.
that people, Christians on both sides.
Yeah.
This was a matter of some theological dispute, right?
Well, and I think it would be it would have to do with your perception of hell, right? And if as a child, if you had a concept of what hell was as a punishment, and then what you might do to go there.
Well, I mean, the Catholics are so big on the forgiveness, right? I mean, you can get forgiveness for any sin.
You can be forgiven for any sin?
Pretty much. In the Catholic Church, you have these dictators and stuff, or mafia bosses who are on their deathbed, and they just sort of repent, and then the idea is that,
how many Hail Marys would you have to say for murder?
Catholics would say that they can't presume to know God's mind, they can't presume to offer, 100% assurance of salvation, no matter how many Hail Marys you say. But we just do know that God rewards those who repent for their sins, and so being aware of your own sins and making at least some gesture will get you in God's good book a little bit more than if you do nothing.
I repent for my sins on YouTube. Do discussions with you.
Oh, that's nice. Let's talk about your religious understanding, because you are one of these people that prances around self-identifying as an atheist now, don't you?
Yes, just down the street. I did go to church every week as a kid.
Which denomination?
United.
Oh.
Diet Coke Christianity. I think what my parents did was until we were 14, I want to say. Then we could decide if we wanted to go.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean, right?
It had less to do with me at the time being I don't believe in God, and more just I want to sleep in on a Sunday.
Well, that suggests that what the United Church was offering was not particularly compelling, right?
Well, no, I mean, gluing cotton balls to a piece of paper or whatever we did in Sunday school. Never retained any knowledge from the Bible or anything, but I'm not sure that they really talked about it. Really, it's more a discussion of what it means to live a good life and be a good person, and these more general, it doesn't even really have a lot to do with God. My reason for not wanting to go, even acknowledging that really all it is a reflection on your week and all these positive things, I'm I could get that out of meditating or yoga or what, there's a million, or working out or something, there's all these other things that I could get all of those positives from without still sitting in front of a Bible that still condemns most of my life. At one point in my life, I was far more high and mighty about my anti-theism at the time when I was coming out, and I was, really, we all go through that phase of thinking we have power and people are listening to us.
But I mean, I think that's why I've never been an atheist, and why I feel like I'm probably getting more spiritual as I get older.
Really?
Because I become more humble, right? And that's something that I find very attractive about religion and about Christianity in particular, is this idea about being humble before God, and God in this sense, is being a sort of force greater than you're able to understand, right?
I just see the world as being kind of ruled by chance a bit, and I don't see anything. I don't think it's an egocentric thing to take full personal responsibility for yourself and your actions.
I also like the idea of having some sense of sort of cultural continuity with my own society and my own civilization. I like having a sense of just self-identifying with the dominant tradition of our culture, and it gives me a sense of loyalty and belonging.
Do you think it's possible to be a person of faith and also be gay, knowing that a lot of the foundation of that faith was against homosexuality, was against a lot of you kind of, I was saying, you just kind of black out the parts of the Bible that you disagree with.
You put your gay identity as very high in the pecking order of determining morality, right? And so that anything that is contrary to your gay identity is sort of a deal breaker. If there is contradictions between Christianity and homosexuality, I can reconcile that, or I can get over it, or I can just choose to selectively not care about it, or be aware that perhaps in the eyes of a Christian God, I am a sinner, but that's, not God's most, like the sin that he cares the most about and this kind of thing. Because I can understand that there's a sort of greater use to it that goes beyond that.
I mean, you're probably right. I think I probably put the gay thing higher up on my list because to me it's something I can't change. Yeah. My faith is something I can change and I can choose, and I'd rather than choosing this thing that is at odds with who I am naturally, I'd rather find something else that works as opposed to trying to like really put this square peg in a round hole.
Like if you believe that the Bible is true, then you sort of have an obligation to follow it, and you have an obligation to sort of like live God's instructions, and that it's not sort of voluntary. Like the true sin would be knowing that it's true and then walking away from that truth, right? As opposed to like realizing that God has created a challenging set of rules for us to live by, and it's all of our own sort of personal struggle is to be the best person we can be in God's eyes, rather than to just sort of walk away at the first sign of struggle or difficulty.
I feel like you have to kind of turn off a lot of your rational brain to accept a lot of faith and what it is, like the basis of the idea that there is a God, to look at the history of that and where that comes from. It looks like a pretty human construct, and it makes sense why it's come about.
This is a very difficult video to end because I can't let you have the last word, or it seems like I'm conceding your point.
I'm way past my point of trying to recruit people to atheism. I don't, life's too short. Do what you do and don't kill people and be good. All those,
Yes, the gospel according to Adam.
Yeah.
David Foster Wallace had this good line where he said that, we have an instinct to worship something, and that when people take God out of their lives, they find something else to worship. And very often... Yeah.